And welcome once again to Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max. I'm your co-host, Tom Mongelli, and this here is my co-host, Doug Max. How you doing, Doug?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great. Tell us who's on the show tonight.
I forgot who's on our show.
Come on, you know him.
Well, I can see him. It's Bobby Gaines. It's Bobby Gaines, one of the few comedians I can say that I love. And not just because of who he is as a comedian, although that's mostly it. And mostly it's because of one joke he tells that whenever I think of it, I'll laugh for days on end.
But, Bobby, how the hell are you?
Oh, thank you so much. How you guys doing? Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Great to see you again.
This is strange, guys.
Why? Because Doug's here?
Hey.
I'm used to the intimacy of you guys, us being together.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of weird.
Yeah, you can say that.
It's the only way we can communicate and not be a danger to one another.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the travel itself becomes a danger. God forbid something happens with your car and you have to run into strangers who are idiots and aren't wearing masks and breathing on you and whatever,
Now, Doug, you keep saying the word danger. At some point, we need to talk about Dangerfield's closing.
Oh, I posted that.
Did you?
Yeah, that's sad, man.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
What a shame.
Taking a really, really, hard blow with this stuff.
It is, but they had been out of business mostly for many, many years. They kind of came back for a few years, but they, the comedians in the business kind of knew what they were doing. They were ostensibly bringer shows.
Right.
They were, that's what they were doing, a lot of showcases. But in any case, before we go on talking about comedy, we should talk about the serious business of Funny Talk and our sponsor, at whose behest we are airing tonight.
That's right.
And every Tuesday night. Our friend, comedy impresario, New Jersey comedy legend, Jack Hoffman.
Jack Hoffman of J. Irwin Productions.
Amazing guy.
Isn't he? He's a great guy. He really is.
And he's been producing shows and will be when they come back. And if you want a show, if you need a fundraiser, you want a comedian to come and perform for you in your shower because you've got a fetish, you don't need to, we won't ask questions. He won't ask, but he'll find you a comedian. Bobby is down with that. Bobby's a clean comedian, so he could perform in the shower and it wouldn't be any problem at all for you, would it, Bobby?
I try to be.
So if you want a comedy show, who should they write to?
They should write to jack@jirwinproductions.com. Email jack@jirwinproductions.com. And
Jack will be having some other ventures that we will be very excited to tell you about when the time is right. And I know fans of Jack will want to stay informed and support and help as they can. So now back to the business of being funny. Where was I?
You were on Earth, I believe. The mothership has not come for you yet.
Did you ever think a mothership was that you were special and that some of the alien stuff you'd been hearing about was true and maybe you were the special one, they were going to come for you, or was that only me?
I'm like the Great Wall of China. I'm the only one on the planet that they can see from outer space.
Oh, wow. But here's the thing, guys. I don't know if you noticed, but New Jersey is a really hot spot for UFO sightings.
Uh-huh.
I did not know that.
Yes, especially down by me because we have the Air Force Base down here.
Right.
My 85-year-old next door neighbor saw a UFO probably a year or so before she died. It was like a bus that lowered itself down to her property, which meant my property too. I didn't see any.
So she was yelling at the aliens, "Hey, get off my lawn!"
But there were these very, very seemingly reliable photos of flying Tic Tacs,
Are you
large
serious?
flying Tic Tacs that are, you know, unidentified.
Well, I have two videos.
Do you?
Yeah, I caught one a couple months ago, and then another one last year. It was at least 6 of them.
Really?
I'm not BSing.
And how do you know they weren't F-16 flares, jet engines versus, what were they doing?
The way they were flying and the way they were hovering. I mean, they stood still for so long, Doug, and then they just shot off.
And did you consider drones a
Uh,
practical joke? And I'm
n-
not, I'm just dubious.
No.
I'm not doubting you, Bobby. I love you.
Oh, I totally believe Bobby. I know that Doug doesn't, but
No. I'm a skeptic. I'm otherwise optimistic. I'm not doubting him. I'm questioning him. That's all.
when you have actual pilots saying that they've seen them, it's not like your ordinary guy who's
Yep. Yep.
taking mushrooms or dropping acid. I mean, you've got legitimate people who are saying that it's something strange. I can't put my finger on it, what it is, but I guarantee you our government's not telling us everything about what's going on.
So, Bobby, the
Yes.
obvious question is, you become the appointed human to make first contact with the aliens, whatever they look like.
I'll pass.
So you'll pass? No, Bobby. You've got to tell them a story. You've got to make, when you make an alien laugh, they love you.
Okay.
It's
As
in it.
long as I
Now,
can fit this, I gotta
they might be throwing mucus on you, but that's their laughing.
Well, as long as there's no probing, I'm good.
Well, so that was my next question on the list. Ironically, I was going to ask you about that even before we started talking about aliens.
Probing? Just probing.
Well, I wrote down probing. I knew what I was going to ask you, but
this is my
I
co-host.
write myself these little notes. I don't think you can read them, but that was, you can't read my handwriting too well, but probing. Oh, it's not going to come in with the camera. Probing. Anyway. Only kidding, Bobby. Only having fun.
He's joking.
By myself.
Yep.
So, Tom.
Yes.
How many UFOs have you seen?
I haven't seen any that I know of, but who's to say that they're not driving around in Volkswagen Jettas?
There you go.
Or gremlins?
Now, you talk about first contact. You're about 3,000 years too late. Been around forever.
Wait, what happened 3,000 years ago? You bleeped out for a second.
Aliens have been around forever. Any contact now is going to be after the fact.
Well, I know we've seen pictures in caves and so on and so. Anyway, so what would you say to them, Tom?
I would
You're
say,
in a field and you see an alien ship land and it comes out and
I would ask one, if the moon really is made of green cheese.
Okay.
And two, can I get a copy of that book, To Serve Man?
Oh, that was so.
No. Oh, don't give them ideas like that.
Oh, that was so good. I love that Twilight Zone episode.
Isn't that awesome?
Oh, that was the best.
Yep. Who can't use
For our
another
Ethiopian listeners, there was an episode of Twilight Zone where at the end of the show, it was revealed that their mission to serve man was to serve man on a platter, maybe with fries on the side.
Right.
An alien sort of a yam.
They weren't vegan.
Okay, you guys, come on. This is seriously. You're in a field, a spaceship lands, lights come, a creature walks, you're paralyzed because of their paralysis, Ray, except you
Now,
can talk.
if they come and land and it's illegal for them to do so, would that make them illegal aliens?
Okay, Tom, I'm going to make a note and contact the authorities about you.
I don't know. Whatever. So, Bobby, you've been out and about, or you're hiding?
Well, I've been comedy wise, just in general.
Just in general.
In general, I mean, I've been pretty much, locked down like everybody else. I did a show here or there. It was outside shows, which are totally horrible. That's not conducive to comedy.
Yeah, they're
Oh
tough.
my! I've always heard, it's so tough to do outside shows. There's a difference if you're like a band or something like that, but
I'll tell you though, I did one in not Flemington, one of the neighboring towns, and it was a fundraiser for some art society, and it was in a parking lot, and it was great. It was as good as any indoor show I've done. Everybody
really
was real receptive. I don't know, it just turned out real well.
right, right. How'd you feel being outside trying to do the comedy?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't like I had to compete against other people talking I mean, they were well behaved. They knew they were there to have fun. They were there to listen to comics. They weren't talking over the comics like some places.
Right, right.
I
Well,
did an open mic down in Absecon, and it was like on a busy street corner with a commuter train that the train would pass every 14 minutes, and you're competing against the train, the traffic noise, people who were there for the alcohol and didn't even know there was going to be an open mic. So they're
right,
talking as loud as the comic. That kind of experience I don't need.
right, right. Well, my show was next to a 7-Eleven. You can imagine how that went.
Ay, ay, ay.
So, Bobby, we talked a little bit before the show. We understand you were painting, and I was painting today too. So what were you painting?
Well, I'm trying to get the interior of my house done. It's been a long time coming, maybe 20 years?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's okay to do every 20 years or so.
right, right. And since I have this time on my hand, I really didn't want to just lose it sitting around doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
And I was sitting on my patio looking at how messed up the outside of my house looked in some places, and I started, and a week later I couldn't stop, so I finished like the backside of my house.
right. And here's the thing, I've never painted before. Like, I really learned the skill from all of this. So I'm kind of thankful, that I
That's
can
good.
do it on my own, save a couple dollars, and do it at my pace. It's not like I'm in a rush to I'm not on a timeline, I'm not on a schedule. So when I get up, when I feel like painting, I paint. When I want to wind it down, I wind it down, and it's been good. I'm just trying to stay productive through all of this.
Well, we should talk painting tips. I've been wanting to do a painting tips show because I've been painting for many, many years.
Really?
Yeah, I was a home improvement contractor for like 10 years. I did a lot of painting and messed up a lot, so I learned a lot. My favorite trick, whiz rollers, the 4-inch little whiz rollers. They're about 1 inch diameter, 4 inches long. Help you get a lot of paint on things like trim really quickly. And then you can follow with a nice 2.5 inch angled painter's brush.
Right.
With a soft hand. They make brushes with a soft and a hard hand.
Right.
Soft is for doing the semi-gloss and getting a nice sheen, and then a hard hand is for cutting in and
Wait, did you hear
sharp
that?
corners.
Did you hear that, Doug?
Silence?
No, it was the sound of our only listener leaving.
Oh. You don't think they came here thinking, oh, I didn't know I was going to get painting tips. I'm going to use a 2.5 inch angled brush.
That's right. And you need
What
it.
do I know? What do I know?
So
What do you know, Tom?
Huh?
What do you know? Name like one thing you know.
Well,
I don't like you talking against yourself.
I know that there were 6 Stooges, not 3. If you count all the curly extras.
Interesting.
Yes.
I wanted to
Wow.
ask Bobby if he can name any of his comedy influences, speaking of old-time comedians.
You know who I was watching last night, and I'm glad you mentioned that. One of my favorite people of all times is Danny Kaye.
Well, really?
I was
Oh,
going to guess Danny Kaye.
the
I
court
used
gesture.
to.
I watched that last night.
Which movie?
Court gesture.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, he was good. I used to watch all his movies whenever they came on, growing up.
Right. So, one of my biggest influences is Jerry Lewis, and he's from Irvington.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
I
You
did
know?
not know that. Wow.
So I'm gonna do just like Jerry, make some money and get the hell out of here. That's what
Lady.
Why don't we do a telethon for like the Human Fund?
Hmm.
But why'd they stop that? Remember that? That was huge.
We could do a Zoom telethon for like restless leg syndrome or some shit.
There we go.
How about I could, one of us could look really, really pathetic and the other two would do a pitch to raise money. Okay, so Tom, if it's you, you'll be the overweight bulimic. He eats like 200 pounds of food a day. To keep him alive, it's $1,027. Please pledge. Oh, thank you. Cheryl Thumbsakakis has just donated $20. That's 5 minutes. 5 minutes of food going down his. Tom, you've been on Weight Watchers. What's the current report? How are you doing?
Oh, I've been off Weight Watchers. I'm like a runaway train. Don't try and stop me.
Tom, listen, get on Jenny Craig.
She yelled at me to get off.
We were playing softball to Bobby. I know his old routine. I can pitch him anything, you know. So Bobby taught me on one ride up. I don't think we talked about this last time you were on. We were talking about comedians we hate and comedians we really, really hate and comedians that anger us knowing that they call themselves comedians. But one of the things Bobby said was, I forget how you put it. You need to put out energy, be fearless. I think that was probably it.
Really?
Does that sound like you, Bobby? Or was was it Gerald Benford and it was just dark and I couldn't tell?
Oh God.
I don't. No, that sounds
That was
like
you. That was you. Yes.
Doug, was that me giving you
You
advice?
said you needed to have energy. You needed to be out. I'm a low comic. I absolutely know I'm a low comic. You know, you're definitely a high comic.
Right.
You know, energy wise. This is what
But
I'm talking.
sometimes that works against you.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. It's because if there's a certain level of, I mean, if you like bringing the show down, then that's your thing. But
Thank you.
if there's a certain energy in the room, then you want to keep that energy.
Well, this weekend I'm going to have to be energetic because I'm going to be emceeing at Scotty's Friday and Saturday.
For
Oh, yeah.
one of my for the infamous comedian whose name I can't bring myself to say.
Come on.
I can't.
So Tom, you're emceeing.
Yes.
That's one of the best gigs to get, man.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, except you get paid the least and you have to stay for the entire show.
Well,
I stay anyway. I always stay.
And I would too. I
You know,
did
that's
most of the time
and
too.
see, here's the thing, Tom. You're the temperature of the room when it comes to being the host.
Yeah, it's a rectal thermometer though.
It's a rectal, right? Well, good luck on this weekend, man.
Thank you.
So
I
what,
just hope they get an audience. Last weekend they had to cancel one of the shows.
really,
Yeah.
who was performing last week?
I think it was Sheba Mason.
Okay.
I was there on Friday night. They gave me a guest spot. And then Saturday, they texted me. They wanted me to come back. And then later they texted me they canceled the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of premature to open up at this point? I still say it's a little too early.
Well, there's a value to being the first one open. The people that are chomping at the bit, they're going to be there.
Right, right.
So I ran some numbers,
Yeah.
and at our current rate of infection, if we continue on with the president's plan of adopting herd immunity, or whatever, herd mentality, herd immunity. So at the rate of infection we currently have, that would mean that if 100% of the country got COVID, that we'd be inviting 10 million deaths. Herd immunity begins, they say, where 60 to 70% of the country has it. This is if you don't have vaccines. You need 60 to 70% of the country to be immune to it and not carry it. And that's presuming that people can't get reinfected, and it seems like people are. So even if we get a vaccine, they'd need a second round. So if you're looking at 60 to 70% to get herd immunity, it would mean the solution our president has come up with is for 6 to 7 million people to end up dead.
Wow.
Well, some people believe in the conspiracy theory of depopulation, that the earth is way overpopulated and the powers that be are actively looking at ways to reverse that.
Well, and the powers that be in this country are actively seeking ways to have COVID kill more of us than in almost any other country on earth.
Right. And it's hurt the African American population.
Yeah, it really has.
Even worse, you know, like my brother-in-law, thank God he had it, he got through it, but you know.
And I know Tom doesn't like talking politics, but if our Supreme Court nominee goes through, and if she is as they want her to be, there's a ruling coming up on the Affordable Care Act very soon. And if she's appointed and rules against it, that'll be a double whammy against all of us, but you know, particularly the lower class.
Right, right. So even if it's an agenda or not an agenda, you still have people dying at alarming rate with this shit. Excuse me.
Right.
You know?
Not for anything, but as you know, I'm in the self-storage business, and business has increased partially because of this. Until he dies, they have to put her stuff somewhere, so they go to
Well, and
self-storage.
you know, and I think a good strategy for getting through COVID would be to put yourself in self-storage.
That's right. Climate controlled, of course.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen people walking in there with blankets and pillows, Tom?
Oh, I've had to kick people out that were living in their units. Sad. I won't tell you the sort of details.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so we got one comedy influence from Bobby, Danny Kaye. You want to go back to Danny Kaye and tell us what you liked about him so much?
Well, I just liked he was an overall performer. I mean, the guy could sing, the guy could dance, the guy could tell jokes.
So, Bobby, you can sing.
Yes.
And you're a musician.
Right.
And you can tell jokes. How's your dancing?
I didn't inherit that.
Did you know Danny Kaye was gay?
Really?
Yep, I found that out late in life. I had no idea. Not
Oh,
that there's
no.
anything wrong with that.
Well, no, but wasn't he the Pied Piper leading children out of a town in one of his shows?
Hans Christian Andersen, you're thinking.
Uh-oh.
No, he's not like Creepy Joe. I don't think he touched any of the, or sniffed
Okay,
any
you
of
know
the kids.
something? You know something? I saw another Facebook post about that, like with, pictures of Joe behind little girls and he's holding them like a granddad, but people are seeing a pedophile. And they're forgetting what our president has not only been alleged of doing, but bragged about doing. So,
Right. Well, Joe looks a little creepy. I'm just gonna, just
Oh, I don't care. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That guy's a creep.
yeah, he's creepy. He's creepy.
He's very creepy.
he's like a grandfather who
I don't know.
likes,
I don't know what your grandfather did, but
he
Hey.
likes the smell of hair. Who doesn't like the smell of a nice woman's hair? You know?
ay.
You come on, you guys telling me that you don't like it when a woman, walks by you and you smell, that fragrance, the flowery smell of a perfume?
Actually, I have very limited sense of smell, so I wouldn't be going around sniffing people.
But Doug, where you hanging out at where you can sniff women's hair so leisurely? I wanna go there.
In Uncle Joe's basement.
Exactly.
So this is what you do. You're like you're in a supermarket, right? So you want to be in the produce area, and you just like slowly around check out different produce until you see a woman checking out the zucchini, and you amble over, sidle up beside her, and you say, and you start, feeling up a zucchini while she's doing it. And you look at her very seriously, and it's important that you be sincere. And you say, "Excuse me, how do I know if a zucchini is right?" And she'll start explaining to you. She'll show you. And
All right, so
anyway,
now
you
Doug
take it from there, okay? You're in a produce section with the woman squeezing zucchini. You take it from there.
So now Doug is officially as
This has
creepy
been a
as
public
Biden.
service. Stop it. Nobody knows. I'm not telling anybody the secret idea.
So what is the pickup line? I need to know the pickup line.
Well,
You need to be yourself from that point.
If you ever saw Animal House, I bet mine is bigger than yours.
Oh, okay.
But anywho, speaking of Animal House, we are also broadcasting on animalhouseradio.net, aside from podbean.com.
Wonderful segue, Tom.
Thanks.
Yes, and our show will also be, well, people are listening to it on Spotify, they know we're on Spotify. And if they're seeing us on YouTube, they know we're on YouTube. And if they're on Facebook watching us, and they're like, I want to see what it looks like on YouTube, it looks exactly the same way. You don't need to go anywhere.
Wow.
So now, are we going to broadcast this video and audio?
Yes.
We are. Okay.
Yes.
So this will be our inaugural multimedia show.
Yes.
Okay.
So, why don't we all take a break and make ourselves look pretty and then come back and start again? I'm kidding.
Too late for that.
You guys look lovely.
Yeah.
Max, is that a cat behind you?
That's Tom, and that is a cat.
That's a cat.
I'm kind of upset, man. I had an outside cat, and someone came and took the fucking cat. Excuse me, someone came and took the cat.
You're kidding.
Oh man, I'm hurt.
It was a catnapping.
It actually it was.
Oh,
See, now if you had a baby goat, it would be
I'm
an
sorry to
actual
hear that,
kidnapping.
Bobby. I've lost a number of cats in my life.
But
I'm
I'm
sorry
I'm
to hear it.
hurt. I'm hurt because that was my outside cat. They kept the rodents away, and someone had nothing better to do than to come get the cat and the kittens.
And the
It
kitten.
wasn't that Chinese delivery guy, was
No, it wasn't the guy. That wasn't him.
it? Did I ever tell you my cat story, Bobby?
What's the cat story?
Well, when I was still living at my parents' house, I think it was my first year of college, my mother felt sorry for an outside cat, a stray cat, and fed it. Well, very shortly thereafter, instead of just one cat outside, there were 12 cats outside because it had kittens, because my mother kept feeding it. So now we got all these kittens living in our bushes and whatnot. And my mother was late for church one morning on Sunday and was rushing my brother, come on, Matt, we're going to be late for church. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
No.
They get in the car. They start to back out of the driveway. And my mother hears, "Meow, meow," and cats are flying straight up in the air and coming back down as flat as an ironing board. They had climbed up on the wheel wells of the car, and she backed up over them and killed like half a dozen cats.
Wow.
She was so mortified. She was crying, bawling her eyes out like you wouldn't believe. The neighbor came with a box and picked up all the cats and took them away. My mother took it forever to stop crying. They finally get to church. Of course, they're late. So at church, mass had started already. And my brother's looking over at my mother, and my mother's barely keeping it together. What does my brother do? He leans in and he goes, meow. That set her off all over again. People are looking at her like she's nuts because she's bawling for no reason.
Wow. Now they climbed up in the wheels because it was cold, or they had nothing else to do.
It was the fall, so it was chilly out.
Okay.
So they're near the engine.
So
Wow.
honk your
Yeah,
horn before you start pulling out.
Yeah, I'm hurt, man. I don't have an outside cat now.
Yeah, that sucks.
You know? It changes the energy around my house because anytime I went outside, the cats were outside.
Right.
I would feed the cats outside. And just
Uh-huh.
she had nothing else to do, and I found out it was just a lady who had nothing else to do.
Oh, you know who did it?
No, they said they saw the lady. She came with a van and fed them and then put them in some cages.
Oh,
Just
maybe it was like an animal control or animal
took
shelter.
animal control.
No?
She was just a lady, had nothing better to do with herself.
Wow. Yeah, my cat's
Maybe
an indoor-outdoor cat. He lives inside, but he likes to go out and explore.
Right, right.
maybe put a can of cat food outside, Bobby.
But that's not my cat.
Well, no, but maybe you can attract another cat. You know,
You can attract me. I'm hungry.
There you
maybe
go.
put up a sign, outdoor cat wanted.
And I just bought a big bag of cat food. This is what sucks.
Wow.
So anyway, I saw the cat, so it just kind of,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Yeah, my
So,
cat will sometimes spend time in the office, and he loves when customers come in. And it's funny how many of my customers will ask me, "So how's Joey Bag of Donuts?" when they call in their payment.
Wow, they're asking about the cat.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, Doug, do you have any pets? I've never asked.
I did have pets. So we had a beagle growing up and a huge 17-pound cat named Buttons. And then
What
I had a
happened?
number of cats and hamsters and chameleons.
Wow.
I had Elephant, Moshe, Mitzi. Mitzi I got for my bar mitzvah as a gift. Moshe had a patch on one eye, like Moshe Dayan. And Echo was my last cat who died of feline leukemia.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I named her Echo because I had to tell her everything twice.
Really?
I could walk down the street with her on my shoulder and she'd stay on. I could put her on the ground and she'd follow along without a
Right.
leash. She could climb up a brick wall.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cats are
pretty
amazing.
amazing cat. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you had reptiles. I was never into the reptiles.
So I really wasn't into them, but a little easy pet for a kid to have.
Right, right.
But my girlfriend has a beagle. So being OCD, it gives me a problem with the beagle's hair. And I've been working on different plans of dealing with that, like spraying it with hairspray whenever it comes over.
Right.
Doug's OCD, he only has pet peeves now. They're easier to care for.
Now, what's the problem with the dog now? What, he sheds or?
Yeah, it sheds. Part of my set as I talk about this, when it poops, it doesn't wipe itself and it comes in the house and it sits down. And in my head, I'm keeping track of these places where it sits down because I know there's a tiny little poop circle wherever it sits.
Right, right.
Does he ever scoot? Does he scoot on the rug?
In, poop lines,
There's
So-
skid marks.
Yeah. So I know they're there even if you can't see them. And then if you
Right.
step on them, you start carrying them around the house. Before
Right.
you know it, your house is basically filled with an infinite number of poop spots.
Oh,
Right.
you haven't lived till you stepped in the middle of the night, stepped barefoot in hot cat puke.
Oh, wow.
They cough up the fur ball and they leave you a nice present.
I was going to ask you that. Is it from the fur balls?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's
Not good.
not good.
No. So I got even, Bobby. When he wasn't looking, I took a dump in his litter box.
There you go.
Yep. The poor bastard thinks he's got colon cancer.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's still trying to bury it.
That cat will never be the same. You realize that, right?
No. He's in therapy now.
Okay, so Bobby, other
Yeah.
favorite comedians, comedy influences?
So we were talking about. Well, Danny's a comedian actor, but my favorite stand-up has to be. I would say I would put Pryor up there. I would put George Carlin up there. I'm an old soul. I like the older guys.
Yeah, I am too.
Any old comedian you might have forgotten, Bobby?
Rich Little. Remember that
Oh,
guy?
I loved Rich Little growing up.
Oh my goodness.
Remember
Any-
Copycats?
Any other old comedians that you really love, Bobby? Who might have shows, maybe you'll
Doug's
be
pretty
on,
old.
Never mind.
You talking about working now?
Never mind. It's the moment has passed.
Oh, okay.
You know who I discovered recently, and unfortunately after he died, John Panette. I think he's
that guy.
the big fat. Yeah. Oh my God, I think he's so funny.
Hilarious.
Right?
He was hilarious.
Yep. And I really didn't discover him until after he died, and I feel bad. I never got to see him or anything.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of guys who've come and they've gone, and if we don't keep them, like I was a big Mitch Hedberg fan, and people don't realize how amazing that guy was.
He was brilliant.
I think he was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
So
I used to work with a teacher in Patterson who worked with Mitch. No, his wife worked with Mitch. She was like his secretary or something.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I also liked what's his name? Wright.
Oh, he was great.
What's his first name? Wright. His last name was Wright.
Stephen.
Stephen Wright. Thank you.
Right. One-liners.
Yeah.
When my family was very wealthy growing up. They gave me a snow globe. It had a working snowplow in it. That was Stephen Wright.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he had a lot of good lines.
Right.
And,
mean,
and he made it even though he was definitely low.
right, and that's hard to pull off those one-liners.
Well, he was purposely deadpan. That was his stage identity, his stage persona.
Right.
So he made it work.
Yeah, you make me think of the few times on stage that I've made myself laugh, and it almost always prompts the audience to laugh.
Well, because they see you're having fun.
Yeah, you've got
I've
to have
always
fun.
found that when I laugh, they laugh. Mainly because my belly shakes like Fred Flintstone.
Maybe it's a reverberation going through the structure of the building you're in, and it's just making their faces wobble, you know?
Tom, I would do that after every punchline. I would just make my stomach jiggle, and there you go.
Actually, you know, as we were getting set up for the show, Tom had he was up close to the camera, and all I could see was his belly. And I was thinking, you know, Tom, if you got a T-shirt and drew like a little happy face down near your folds, and then just bounced up and down, I think it could be another character for the show. You know,
That was like on the old Gong show. There was the guy with the big belly that had the lips.
yeah, or the people, you know, they write it on their hand and they,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I actually, when I first started out, I had a T-shirt that said "actual size," and if anybody mentioned it, I'd look at a woman in the audience, wink, and say, "I have matching underwear."
Wow.
For some reason, I thought a shirt like that should have on the back, it should say, warning, objects are closer than they appear.
So, Tom, I never asked you, how many years have you been doing this, bro?
How many years?
We're saying 8. We kind of started the
between
Euro.
8 and 9 years. We're going on 9 years.
So we're about all around the same.
Yeah.
About the same time.
Well, you're ahead of me, Bobby. I know you are.
In terms of what?
I don't know. I remember when I saw you at Rockin' Joe's. When I saw you up there, I thought, wow, how long has this guy been doing comedy? I don't know if you've been doing it 2 years or 5 or 10 at that point, but I loved it.
Well, thank you. And
I don't know what you were doing. You were farting around. I know you were doing that. You know I mean, it was Rockin' Joe's.
My first couple years, I put so much into it. Like, I was really, really funny the first 3 years, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah, what happened to you?
But Doug, we had this conversation. Like you told me, you said you're not a fighter plane anymore. You remember that?
I'm not a what? A fighter plane?
Fighter plane. Like
I don't remember that.
You use the kind of analogy where, you know, when we first start, we're like soldiers in this thing and we go so hard, but now it's a big difference. I see the difference.
Yeah. Well, I know that in the beginning you're struggling, and I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time, but you're struggling to create an on-stage persona.
Right.
You're struggling to, you know, hone the jokes that you've already written, but also you're fighting to find new jokes so that you're not stale all the time.
Right.
And I think you get complacent over the years when you get it down where you can rely on it. You have an actual hesitancy to move on to something else.
You have to be able to go in strong and brave, and knowing either what you're going to do or knowing, you know, you can be in control are absolutely essential. Being able to get up there and control the room. Well,
can I ask you guys, just, you know, both of you just take a couple minutes on this. How's your comfort level on stage now? Are you 100% comfortable, or do you still have those moments? Because I still, to be honest, I still have those moments of like, I don't know where this thing is going to go.
I know for me, it depends on the audience. For instance, I know that I hit almost every joke when I'm dealing with baby boomers. When I'm
Right,
dealing with millennials, I'm as nervous as, a person just doing it for 3 months.
right,
Because I know that the jokes aren't going over. They consider them dad jokes. They're gonna be offended by half of the things I say, which
right,
there's nothing to be offended by, but you know how they are.
right.
Well, that offends me.
Even in that moment, how's your comfortability level? That's what I'm trying to.
Well, like I said, if it's an older audience, I'm very comfortable.
Okay.
You know,
And
I
I had the benefit. I was a corporate trainer for 30 years. I've trained military officers, Marines and in the Navy. And, in order to do that, I'd have to stand up in front of a group of strangers for 2 solid days and bullshit about business writing and presentation skills.
Right, right,
So I had that advantage of I got rid of any jitters I had about performance along, but what makes me, I'll look around in an audience and I'll think, usually my thought will be the same. It's like I can't do my dog joke
right,
about the time the dog had an orgasm when I was petting it.
right,
I'm just
right,
good at petting it, so I wasn't
right,
rubbing it the wrong way or
right.
sounds like
So,
you're good at heavy petting.
anything. So, but I'm dumb. So, but and I'll quickly go through and think, but more often than not, if I'm in a comedy environment, where people are there for comedy, I'm comfortable.
right,
If I have to do something where I have to be, where they give me the rules, and I've been at shows too where 5 minutes before it's a clean show. What?
right, right,
And I never use a bad word, but I deal with topics. How shall I put them? That are not clean.
right.
Now,
What,
Bobby,
go ahead.
I want to deflect this back to you. As a black comic, do you find the racial and say ethnic makeup of the audience? How does that affect you going in and your confidence level?
Tom, that is such a good question because I'm going to tell you, can I just be honest?
Absolutely.
And this is the secret.
I
Just
know what
between,
you're going to say.
this is a secret. I do so much better doing my white shows than I do with my own. And I don't know what it is. It's
Uh-huh.
just, and it's not like I'm, some bougie black guy. I'm from Irvington, New Jersey. You can't get any more ghetto than that. But I do so well outside of my race, class, and gender. It's crazy, and I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
Huh. Now, would you agree? I've noticed that strictly black houses, black venues,
Right,
there's like a different sense of humor, so to speak, than the all white, suburban middle class
right.
audience.
And I think one thing about the African American audiences, we are accustomed to a certain rhythm of comedy.
Okay.
It's set up punchline laugh, set up punchline laugh. There's never at that time that I could kind of stretch, because you ever heard that the rules you should be getting a laugh every 18 to 30 seconds.
Right.
That's in that circle where you're looking for those quick laughs where, I think we've been kind of trained how to look at comedians where, and I'm not trying to make this a black and white thing, but I think
Yeah.
like my white audience, they'll give you grace. Okay, he's setting it up. He can take his time. Where African Americans, we're in, we want it quick. We want it fast. And if you
Yeah.
don't impress them in those first 8 to 9 seconds, it could be a turnoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I've learned to do is, and one of the biggest thing as a comic, know your audience, know who you're entertaining.
Right.
And like I said, I do well. Like I'll do well regardless of where I go, but I can tell there's a different energy. You know, a laugh is a laugh.
Right.
Like here's the thing, and it's reversed for my white comic friends. They do well in the African American room.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I guess maybe it's an oddity. Okay, here's this white guy. He's here, but you know, it's gonna always be, you know, and that's just the beauty of being a comic. Like you never know, from
Yep.
show to show, you never know.
That brings up a good point. A lot of times, well, almost every show I try to kind of eavesdrop on conversations in the audience to try and get a feel for who I'm dealing with.
Right, right.
You know. If it's for me, I'm not there. But
So
anywho,
what do you think in terms of different races, different audiences? Is it the same response, or do you feel a difference? Is it just me?
I'm sure it's not you, but I did want to say one thing that you need to be, because I love you, Bobby, I want you to be careful that you don't talk yourself into not being able to perform as well in an urban room
Well,
versus a white one. And I'm not discounting your experience, and it might be right.
Right.
But the challenge for you would be, and you already got some of the pieces of why, and you know what they seem to like differently. And
right,
you've got components of that in your act already. And so the challenge would be, come up with an act. I wouldn't say come up with an act for Black people, but, come up with an act of shorter bits. And I need to do that. I'm a storyteller. I go up with a list of 10 things I want to talk about. I get through 2 stories.
right.
That's it.
And here's the thing about me, I'm a writer first. So what I'm learning in these years going forward, sometimes you just gotta throw away the jokes and just wing it on stage. Just be funny.
well, let me tell you, sometimes that doesn't always work, which
Oh, no.
which doesn't feel well. But when you do connect, when you're doing that, there's nothing like it.
Right. Because you're in the moment.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
I don't want to embarrass you guys, but you made me think of the times it doesn't. So I'm going to tell you, I think probably what was my worst comedy experience ever. And if you guys want to share your humiliating comedy moments. So I'm at Gotham. It was my 4th comedy show ever.
Upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs in the big room.
Whoa,
And it
okay.
turned out Jim Gaffigan was the sneak headliner that night. I had no idea. It was my 4th comedy show ever. I had done the Comedy Cove. So I got talked into doing a bringer show in New York. Wasn't getting any laughs. I was going through, I had a list of like 60 things. And anyway, and the end of the story is not only did I blow the light, but they turned off the mic then. And then the guy had to come on the MC to say, Doug, your time is over. But that's not the humiliating part. The humiliating part was it was a 15-person bringer. So the comic before me was like an 85-year-old retiree that brought 30 or 40, half of the room was 80 to 90-year-old people from his retirement community. Now, this is my 4th show. I didn't know the audience and blah, blah, blah. What I learned in comedy school was do your material. Right, Tom? That's what we learned, do your material. So I began what wasn't really material at the time. I began a segment of my bit, probably after the light had already gone off, by beginning by saying, now I want you to know, I don't endorse bestiality. But if you think about it, and right about that point, I looked towards that group of 40 people, half of the room, and all of their mouths were open and like staring at me. Now today, if I was faced with that, I would look at them and say, yeah, it's a comedy show. I'm making comedy.
Right.
I already told you I don't endorse bestiality.
Right.
You can train animals to do almost anything.
Right.
They come in, you can get them to match your decor. They come in a wide variety of colors. You can get them in different sizes, whatever you like. You can call them anything. They're not going to tell anybody.
Doug brings a new meaning to the term "I love you." EWE.
Yeah, thank you for spelling. Anyway, that was,
So
I
that
just
was your,
still, I look at that group, that sea of mouths hanging open.
right.
And
So
then
did you,
Gaffigan ended up stealing one of my premises about Jesus's mother, Mary, being raped by God. He
oh, man,
dabbled around with that.
right,
Yeah. It's like, I learned. I went too big. I flew too close to the sun. And I
right,
didn't know what I know now. But
right. So do you think you've changed your material at all because of
I
that? Or,
haven't. Now I want to tell that bestiality story again. I've got to give it another try.
right,
But
right,
Bobby, listen, when I'm at a show and I'm uncomfortable, I go to the jokes that always work, that I love. And fortunately for me, my favorite stories are ones that always get laughs, and and there are usually laughs along the way too. So if I get uncomfortable, instead of trying new stuff that I was thinking on the ride I'm going to try, I'll,
right,
I realize the only people that aren't going to like that are the comedians that have heard me giving a dog an orgasm 1,000 times.
right.
But the audience, everybody in the country has not heard that story. They deserve to hear that story.
That's right. And it's a
Okay.
darn good story.
Okay. So I've humiliated myself on air. We've got enough time. If you guys want to share anything close to that bad.
Well, there were 2 or 3 occasions where I physically fell getting on the stage. Totally bang, hit the ground, 3.4 on the Richter scale, and then wallow like a turtle on my back, can't get up, had to call AAA. So the first time it happened, I quickly grabbed the mic, half out of embarrassment, and I said to the audience, "You think stand-up is easy?"
That's funny.
And it worked. And it worked
Right,
the second time as well.
right.
And the third time, Tom, she wouldn't eat the mushrooms.
Well, the way I see it, Jesus fell 3 times, so I'm in good company.
There you go.
I know you got steps for you at the Stengel stage.
Yes, they actually built steps for me at the Stengel stage in Flemington, because I was pretty much on all the shows there, and they had like a folding chair and a cinder block to climb up onto the stage, which was like 3.5 feet off the ground. And they got tired of worrying about me suing them,
Right. So they built some steps.
so they built stairs. Yeah,
Wow. See the power of comedy? Isn't that amazing?
that's it. See, gravity is not just a good idea; it's the law.
It's the law. There you go.
So, my friend Mr. Gaines, have you ever had a humiliating comedy experience
Yeah.
that was somehow formative?
Yeah, I was doing a benefit show. And this goes some years back. And it was this one white lady that got up, came to the stage to let me know that she had enough of that black stuff.
During your bit? During your set?
During the bit, she walked up to the stage, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I had enough of this black stuff," and walked out. And you know what I said while she was walking out?
Well,
I had enough of the old white woman stuff.
That's how I got it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What did you say?
I said, "Have a good night. I hope black people are breaking into your house right now."
That's great.
Now, if I wouldn't have said that, then she would have had control,
right.
and I
Yep.
would have never lived that down. But
Oh my
because I
God.
got that laugh, I felt redeemed. That was it. I was done.
Bobby, that reminded me of another great comedy moment. Tom, you were there for it. The
What's that?
MC, we were in a hair salon, a private show, The MC was 3 feet to my left introducing me. And as he's bringing me up, he's like, I'm so glad to see the diversity in the room. We've got men and women. We've got blacks and whites. We've got Christians and Jews. And a woman in the front row stood up and pointed at me and said, "That's one."
Oh, wow. That's hilarious.
So I got up, really tiny, narrow space. I get up and I'm like, "Thank you for that warm welcome." And I start looking, are these the only doors? And if anybody sees any Nazis around, would you let me know? But I died laughing when everybody died laughing. She was clearly inebriated.
And that's the beauty of comedy, because, you don't forget those things. That becomes part of our DNA.
Uh-huh.
It really makes us stronger.
And it's a story. I've told that story many times. It's hysterical.
Right.
I've actually used it for my opening line. When people have given me a warm welcome, I say, "Oh, thank you. That's a much better welcome than I got last week." And I told them the story. That's why. So your welcome was much better. Thank you.
Right. But think about it. Comedy is abusive. We take a lot of abuse from this. It's not like,
Well, I used to teach school in Patterson. So one, I'm used to abuse, and two, I'm almost disappointed I don't get heckled on stage because I'm ready for them.
Right, right. But you know what? They probably look at you, and Tom, and they be like, "Well, he's ready." you know?
But Bobby, you're making me think, for those that stay in it and love it, given the abuse, such as it might be for particular comics, I'm thinking many comics that I know, everyone, has had not all of them, but many of them have had a pretty tough life. And most people nowadays have a tough life.
Right.
So, the comic is every man in that regard. And there are a few comics I know that are really entitled, and they try to do humor about being entitled. It typically isn't that funny.
Right,
At least not to me.
And that's one thing. That's one of my pet peeves about Jerry Seinfeld. Like, where's the funny coming from now, dude? You made it. You done it.
Yeah.
Is it just me?
Well, I saw him in concert about a year and a half ago in Atlantic City. And as much as I loved his show, and I even liked his stand-up over the years, I didn't find him that funny.
And I'll tell you the reason why is because, one thing about a comic, once you make it, you make it. You're not funny. To me, you're not funny anymore. It just takes
you
away.
Lost the struggle.
Then you want to be a social philosopher.
Right.
And tell stories and teach people, and
Right.
It's a danger of ego, I think, one. And if you've made it at that point, and listen, pictures, their arm goes out after so many years. You can only do so many things for so long.
Well, you have to admit, most comedy comes from controversy and struggle.
Right.
So once you've made it, and you're not wanting for anything, you lose a lot of that.
Well, you lose it unless you've got it like deeper, unless it's deep inside of you.
Right.
You have to do it.
Right. And I think that's probably the challenge when you really make it. Well, then how do you stay relevant? Because you made it.
Right.
Well,
the book he wrote is called "Is This Anything?" Because he often needs feedback. If he thinks of something that he think might work on stage, he needs other people to verify, yeah, this is something or not something.
Right, right. Yeah, that's, it's an odd thing with comedy. It's like you want to make it, but then this is the beauty of it right here.
Yeah.
We've often talked, and I think we share the same desire to become world renowned and beloved, but obscure at the same time.
Right.
Able to live in obscurity.
One thing I realized, it's definitely not about the money.
No, that's for sure.
It's definitely not about the money, guys, because like
Yeah,
I'm
we
a
do know, Bobby.
I've I've seen both sides of this. I've been a musician and then I've done comedy. And although they're two legitimate art forms, comedy is so much harder
Yep.
because you're not hiding behind anything. With a musician, you're hiding behind a guitar, you're hiding behind this. You're up there, you're pretty much this is the rawest form of art you can ever do. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of people have said that.
I definitely agree.
I mean, and then just to see you
That's
write
if you do it well. But if you do it like me, never mind.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Because you might have the solution to all of this, Doug.
You know how
No, I need to work harder at it. When I went through the trauma of my dad dying, I got a lot of comedy out of that. I have to wait for the, appropriate time period to pass until it's, okay
Right.
for me to do. I think
Right.
it's going to be next Tuesday.
Okay. Why wait?
But anyway, the other thing I was going to say about, where do you find new inspiration for comedy? Isn't it sick that you need to, it very often is the trauma. It's
Right.
it's a dramatic event.
Right.
And the strongest comedy comes from that.
Right.
And
I
I'm
don't.
petting that dog on a first date, my first date in 20 years, and it has an orgasm. And I'm
Right.
like, are you kidding? What's that, God? You want me to be a comedian and tell that
Right,
story
right.
to the world? Okay.
Right. I think comedy has always been about tension, struggle. It's never been comedy has never comes from a happy place.
Right.
Like if you look at all your really profound comics, let's just take Richard Pryor for example. The whole freebasing thing, that's dark.
Oh yeah.
You see how dark that is?
Yep.
So when we get to a happy place, then it's not comedy. I don't think it's comedy anymore.
Right.
I think comedy, the biggest thing is the human experience. You can't leave anything out. The moment you start leaving out the pain and the trauma and what happened to you and stuff, then it's not comedy.
Right.
Shut up. You're going to make me cry.
I don't want to hear knock jokes. I want to hear something that happened to you.
Anyway, so Shakespeare was very, very well known for using the comic foil. So he was incredible at the drama, but before every big dramatic scene in a Shakespearean play, there would be a little comedy bit.
Right.
Before the last Poor Yorick, I knew him well, the gravedigger scene.
Right.
The two gravediggers are having some bawdy conversation. There was another scene, somebody was knocking on the door of a castle right before Lady Macbeth came down, and the guy's basically yelling, hold your pants on, don't piss on the front door, which in Shakespeare was, funny.
Right,
but it sets up the tension. So, I think that the putting the real pain in there is,
right.
That's why I have one joke, and that's exactly why it works. I had to go through a procedure so I could have sex again.
Right.
Divorce.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah.
And that's a huge laugh right there.
Yeah. Not the way I told it now.
No, but the way you told it now.
Delivery, it's short. It goes in people are thinking something very different.
Right.
And they don't want to hear it. They're cringing. And then I give them a release.
That's a comedy technique. That's bait and switch. You take them up there and you take them the other way.
Right. Bobby, tell me if you think along the same lines as I do. The longer set that you do, the more it's important to not stay on the same subject or the same topic through your whole set.
Right.
Because you really need to, you need to find material that people can relate to.
Right.
And if you're in a room with, 50 skinny people, I'm not going to do fat jokes for 20 minutes.
Right, right.
you know, because they don't know the pleasure of being fat.
Right. So they can relate for a couple minutes and you need to keep it moving.
Right. You need
Right.
to change up the topics.
Right.
But when you're doing a 3-minute set in the beginning, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right. You know, and I
But
think
oh, sorry, Bob.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Tom, if you're killing with a room of skinny people with your fat jokes,
Yeah.
no reason not to do 20 minutes. Your job is only to make them laugh. But I agree that if you change the field of conversation from food to, you know, growing up in New Jersey to diners as food again, but you know, you stand more of a chance of hitting some people's hot spots, or, you know.
Right. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What about purposely bringing controversy on stage? Is that you, or is it you kind of stay away from that, or?
Traditionally, I've tended to stay away from that,
Right.
but I haven't had an opportunity because of no shows, but I would like to start, you know, doing that more.
Right.
I will answer that by saying every time I have done political humor, I will split the room.
Right.
But when deserved, I feel good. I feel
Right.
like I've served a role as a comedian by
Right.
mocking someone, say like president, you know, who deserves it. Most of
Right.
the time that I've done that, though, I've also quoted our president exactly. So,
Right.
but you know, it makes me feel good. But I do know that it alienates an audience, and it violates, you know, sort of a fundamental rule I have, that an audience paid money to come out and be entertained. And
Right.
I don't want to be the one to humiliate them or make them feel lesser, or like, you know, they have to worry like, you know, they're this, that, or the other thing, and I might pick on them.
Right. So it's a personality thing. Do you believe that, or is just some people just, you know, they crave that, or is it somebody like, you know, you, where you're conscious about what I want to say and what I don't want to say on stage?
Well, I think personality has a lot to do with it. Like I have a need to be liked. It
Right.
bothers me if I know that somebody doesn't like me, and it shouldn't. Who the hell cares if they like me or not?
Right.
But for some reason, it's important to me.
But as comics, we pander anyway. That's our job.
Yeah.
You know, like me, like me, like me. It's just that we all have that sense of, you know, are they gonna like me or not?
Right.
You know, and that's
I've never worried about that, because I've known for many years that, you know, people just aren't going to like me.
right.
You know, I deal with that.
Well,
I'm
Doug,
grateful for the 3 minutes they give me on
right.
stage.
Doug, you're different. You're different.
Thank you, Bobby.
You know, but since I met you, you've always had that. It's not a nonchalant thing, but it's like that doesn't bother you. Like me and Tom have that, you know, that inner thing about we want to be loved. Tom, wouldn't you agree? We want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
Well,
loved.
listen, I want to be loved too. I want to be loved too, and I'm loved by enough.
You don't show
I'm loved by enough people. I don't need it from, you know, strangers in help clubs.
I want to be loved like pizza.
it.
You know that old joke, how many slices you want that cut into? Guy orders a pizza. How many slices you want? You better make it 6. I don't think I could eat 8.
So when are we getting back on stage, guys? That's the most important thing.
Well, Bobby, in some regards, you are right now on stage.
Thank you.
And with any luck, you'll have a bigger audience than you'd get in many rooms around here. Nothing personal.
Right.
So that's one thing. And you know, beyond that, Tom is already on stage. and I'm envious of him, but I'm also a little worried for him.
Right.
So I made him a plexiglass box.
Oh, there you go.
You know, this is the way I look at it. If I'm wearing my mask, if I'm distancing myself, as long as I'm not licking the audience, they tend to dislike that anyway.
Oh.
Ironically, one of the dangerous things in a comedy club is laughter because of aerosol spread.
Right.
And today I heard on the news that the CDC had issued a guideline that encouraged choruses not to sing because somebody singing in a chorus emits aerosol at a much greater rate for a far greater distance.
Right.
The White House eliminated that as part of their warning, but it's in the news. So, I worry about aerosol is what I worry about.
Right.
And, I love comedy and I miss doing it live, but I want to be alive.
Right.
I worry about it.
I mean, with me, as much as I love it, I'm not pressed to just jump back out there knowing that, we're all at risk.
Yeah.
But Tom, you're a brave man.
Well, I know that it's a precarious time and a lot of comics haven't returned yet purposely.
Right.
And I'm making it known that I'm making myself available for those spots that are being turned down by other comics.
Right.
I ended up getting 3 guest spots at Scotty's because of that.
Nice.
Awesome.
Oh, speaking of all that stuff, Tom, when you get some time, would you mind making a new Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max logo that just says Funny Talk
with Max?
Max and Gaines.
Max and Gaines.
I like
Bobby,
it.
start eating.
Wow.
I've had Max Gaines over this COVID period.
Wow. Who would have thought, like, the symptoms, like some of the symptoms are munchies and Netflix. These are the symptoms.
Well, Bobby, you know how people have been binge watching? I've been binge watching the inside of my refrigerator.
Wow.
I had to change the light bulb 3 times.
It's crazy, man.
Tell me about it.
So,
didn't you put a lava light in your refrigerator?
Oh, I'm just doing crazy things now. I put a lava lamp in my refrigerator just to confuse the Jell-O.
Oh.
And who says comedy can't come from a happy place? Where is the anger and the pain and the suffering in that joke? So, guys.
Yeah.
We've done our time.
Oh, this was amazing.
Really? That was quick.
We've done more than our time. Actually.
Wow.
Cool. Well,
so it did seem to go quickly. So my measure of how we did was a good show.
Oh yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just want to mention again, don't forget, email Jack at J. Irwin Productions for all your comedy needs. And I want to thank you, Bobby, for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure having you. And Doug,
Yeah, you don't have to say it, Tom. This has been another episode of Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max. I'm Doug Max.
And I'm Tom Mongelli.
He's Tom Mongelli and our wonderful guest, Bobby Gaines. Look for Bobby on Facebook. Gaines.
Right.
And we'll see you next time.
And we're not going to play the theme song?
What's the theme song?
We need one. Bobby's a musician. We ought to be able to hum or something on our... Yeah, somebody wrote us a funny talk song.
And do a funny talk song.
It's funny talk. Funny Talk with Mongelli, Max, and Bobby Gaines. Funny Talk with Mongelli, Max,
See,
and
Bobby,
Bobby Gaines.
I noticed that the Doug's name Max rhymes with hacks, so I wanted to use that in the theme song.
Oh, that's
Joey
funny.
and Max were a couple of hacks.
I think we should come out with a show called The Wandering Jew and the what is it? What are you? What kind of Catholic are you? And the
I don't know.
yes, you do. Not the lapsed. There's a name for it. Like a fallen Catholic. Never
Oh,
mind.
non-practicing.
Wandering Jew.
Anyway, we're
Well
over
done.
time. We're gonna say goodnight, and we will be airing new episodes every Tuesday on Podbean.com, AnimalHouseRadio.net, etc., etc.
Yes, you can get to us directly at funnytalk.podbean.com and at our Facebook page, Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max.
Guys, it was fun.
Yep. Thanks again, Bobby.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one. Thanks.
You too.